Now I'd like to proceed to Session 3 entitled Transformative Engagement and Education for Sustainable Development. This session will be moderated by Ms. Jung from the Section of Education for Sustainable Development at UNESCO headquarters. Let me invite Ms. Jung, who is connected from Paris. Ms. Jung?
Good afternoon. Hello. Good morning from UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And good afternoon and good evening for those of you connecting from across the world. And welcome to the Session 3 on Transformative Engagement and Education for Sustainable Development. My name is Won Jung-byun, Senior Project Officer in the Section of Education for Sustainable Development here at UNESCO. And I'm pleased to moderate this session. Today's topic builds on the destruction of the ecosystem that is closely related to the increase of the infectious disease, as well as other forms of injustice. And this calls for collective action to raise the awareness on sustainability crises, such as climate change, and to actively make meaningful differences in the world that we live in. And in fact, this objective is connected very well with our topic of today in connection with the goals that are enshrined in the SDG Target 4.7, which aims to ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed for sustainable development by 2030 through both global citizenship education and education for sustainable development. And regarding the efforts on ESD, the new global framework on ESD called ESD for 2030, which will be formally launched at UNESCO World Conference in May 2021, calls for the role of ESD as key enabler to achieve all 17 SDGs. In particular, the ESD for 2030 framework emphasizes the role of individuals who take transformative engagement to lead societal transformation towards sustainability. So ESD in action is basically citizenship in action. And in order to promote individual and societal change, ESD for 2030 calls for innovation in learning content, pedagogy, and learning environment. So in this session, with this background, we will share the insights and experiences on how to promote transformative engagement for sustainability through education, in particular through education for sustainable development. I'm afraid we have very limited time to deal with this extremely interesting topic, so we will dedicate about 30 minutes to the interviews with the panelists, followed by moderated question and answer. And to raise your questions or to share your comments, please use the chat box on the conference website. So now I have the pleasure of introducing today's 5 panelists. Ms. Akpezi is the founder of Anpez Center for Environment and Development in Nigeria, and a thought leader who has dedicated many years on promotion of education for sustainable development. Ms. Curmira GULSTON is a passionate youth leader and young marine biologist from Trinidad and Tobago who would share her own personal experience of transformation and engagement in ESD. Mr. Bruno is someone who leads transformation of schools through ambassadors of citizen expression programs and many other engagements. And Ms. BALTAZAR is an 18-year-old student who works closely with Bruno as a young ambassador of Demain. And Mr. Rudolf MOUBARAK is a science teacher from Latini School in Beirut, Lebanon, which is a UNESCO-associated school which was also awarded as a green school. So we have an exciting group of panelists for this session today. So Curmira, Rudolf, Bruno, Noah, and Akpezi, thank you very much for joining this session today. So let me first of all invite Curmira from Trinidad and Tobago. As briefly mentioned earlier, she's a marine biologist and a young leader who has been working with other young people on climate change, in particular on the conservation of coral reef in Trinidad and Tobago. So Curmira, over to you. So how did you become interested in sustainability issues in the first place?
Okay, thank you. I can recall two specific moments that influence who I am today and that fuel my passion. So during my childhood, my grandfather would take my siblings and I on these spontaneous trips to the coast. One day I swam out to the reef and I stood up immediately, and my grandfather shouted, like, "Curmira, don't stand. You always need to be conscious of the consequences of your actions." The second moment was during high school. My geography teacher assigned us a project on the implications of oil spills. The next day, I created this organization called Pause for Cause and encouraged persons from the school to also join, where we discussed environmental issues, came up with sustainable solutions. We planted trees, organized beach cleanups, sensitized the school on different issues. So these two experiences allowed me to realize that a lot of persons don't understand the concept of environmental sustainability. And it also taught me that I have a voice and I can inspire others to take action.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. So personal interest in the ocean started at home thanks to your grandfather, which then became amplified through experiential learning experiences at school encouraged by your geography teacher. So in your experience, what are the lessons learned and what do you think education can do to support transformative engagement as you have done yourself?
Okay, as previously mentioned, a lot of persons go about their daily lives without connecting the dots. So what are the consequences of my actions? What can I do as an individual? The impacts of climate change has been severe within the Caribbean, causing significant socioeconomic consequences. Increased storm intensity, increased temperature, diseases, and other anthropogenic activities have destroyed the corals over time. So this led me to study marine biology and then integrated coastal ozone management, and also work with young people to become champions of the environment and sustainable development. I believe that education is the only tool that can channel transformative engagement. And we can't hold persons accountable for their actions if they are not meaningfully engaged or if they don't understand the linkages. And then only then can we really make significant strides towards realizing our climate ambitions and ensuring a more equitable and sustainable future.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Curmira, for your inspiring story. So in order to make sure that young people like Curmira are not just exceptional individuals, but are engaged and encouraged more widely, schools actually hold the key to lay the foundation for transformative engagement for sustainability. So to dive deeper on the role of schools, let us now invite Mr. Rudolf MOUBARAK from Latini School from Beirut, Lebanon. Rudolf, I heard that your school has been recognized with silver medal as a green school. I know that a lot of teachers who are with us in this session would agree that it's always not so easy to make changes in school. So how did it all start and how did you manage to reach where you are now today?
Yes, at the beginning, so it was 5 or 6 years ago, there was an English teacher and coordinator in our school that was connected to UNESCO, and she put me in relation with this international organization, and then we were invited with other teachers and students to join in events, training on sustainability. And thanks to these opportunities, we met NGOs, we met engineers, sometimes businessmen, who helped us learn about sustainable material like eco-friendly painting, sustainable technology, for example, devices that reduce water use. And sometimes, or often, budget was an issue. But we were able to convince school authority, and we once jumped on occasions. The school was going to be renovated, And so we managed to help introduce new construction materials. Like, for example, in the pictures, you can see insulators made up from recycled paper. It's the photo at the right below. And also some roofs were adapted, for example, to collect rainwater, like the one you can see at the left picture. We used also a lot of natural light to reduce electricity consumption, etc. So we use also solar energy, not only to heat water, but also to charge the batteries of our UPS system. So the UPS system, you know, it's when you have electrical current cut. So all what is functioning, like computers, like TVs, must not be shut down. So it's replaced immediately by these UPS. And so it's clean energy. And you also have reduced paper use. And now I think the pandemic had also, it's maybe the only advantage of this pandemic. So it has accelerated the use of the numeric communication. And so we dropped the paper communication. Actually, we are using sometimes, or not sometimes, but now everything is being done by social media.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks like an amazing school, and for example, this rain harvesting roof looks amazing. So a lot of big changes in school environment, but how do you think that these physical changes in school influence the students and their learning?
Well, these changes help to motivate students and teachers to change or to adapt the learning content. Because sometimes the learning content was here, but we had to adapt it. They can see the changes around the school, and the students are motivated by all these changes, by the NGOs that comes to school or that we visit, external associations who partner with the school to help recycle, for example, and to promote zero waste. You can see here in one area of the school, there are many areas equipped with these sort of barrels, blue barrels, and the students have learned to drop every material in the proper container. So we had also to train the delegates, student delegates, to participate in the process. Now we continue to make efforts because our progress is regularly evaluated by the organization, so it's another push. So the silver medal, we can lose it or it can be downgraded. And but right now, the situation in Lebanon is quite difficult because we have the pandemic and we have a harsh economical crisis. So motivation for sustainability seems to have dropped down, to become less important than the issues of health, of security, of survival, I may say. But we are still evolving. We now no longer use, as I said before, paper for exams. We have become more or less paperless, at least. I can say 90% paperless. And we continue to make efforts whenever we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rudolf, for sharing your experience. Green schools activities sound amazing, and to encourage learners to become change agents who have the knowledge and means and willingness and courage to take transformative action for sustainable development. Learning institutions need themselves to be transformed. So in that way, I think Rudolf's amazing story from his school is one very, very good example of how institutions can be transformed. But the entire learning institution also needs to be aligned with sustainability principles in terms of their way of organizing and way of governing. So in that way, building on from the experience from Beirut on transforming facilities and learning, I would like to invite now Bruno and Noah from Brussels. Bruno and Noah, could you tell us on how you advise that we can change school governance and culture to promote sustainability from deep down?
Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody. And thank you to give us a little place just to share about that. Actually, the first thing I want to say about that is that global transformation comes all the time from local involvement and from local strategies. And school, for example, is such an important place to learn about the relationship we can have with our environment. For example, in the active citizenship schools that it's a model we are developing, we are promoting a lot of tools, but two main tools to work on that relationship. The first tool is that we are building the living together rules with the student. That means that every year or every 2 years, we are asking them, what rules do we need to live together in a proper way in our school? And when we are doing that, every time students are building rules to take care of the material, but also to take care of the school facilities. And in that way, they can experience that when rules are important to take care of what's around us, and the conscience that what's around us, it's important, can come from that tool we use to build the rules. The second tool is that we are not only building the rules, we are also working on it. And we use for that the school council. In the school council that take place every week, there is that mission just to defend the rules that have been built. And the rules that have been created have to be defended. They have to be translated in concrete actions. And by that second strategy, students discover that we have a concrete role to play. We have not only to say things, but we have to manage projects to be concretely active on it. And they discover that it's possible, actually. It's not fast, it's not easy, but it's possible to have an impact on the school environment. And that's very important that students discover that, because knowing that we have something to say about the environment or all the sustainability issues, that's one thing. But just experience that it's possible to have an impact on it, that it's a good thing just to be in action. That's something that most of the youth don't think firstly. The second problem we have, and I want to talk about, is that most of the time, the way we are educating students, it's like we, the adults, we, the society, we are offering them content and skills. But actually, in that way, it's like if us, the teachers, we have continuously to offer them and to convince them that, yeah, it's great to come with us in that adventure. But actually, it's difficult to do that because there is a lot of gap. We are older, most of the time in a difficult neighborhood, we are from other culture. And so it's difficult just to convince them. In our association, we are working with young ambassadors, as Noah is a young ambassador, and we are forming them in order just to share with others the citizen tools they have benefit from. And then when they are prepared, we go with that young ambassadors in schools, and we are proposing together to some projects to the youth, some projects to the students and to the teachers. And by that way to work, it's possible that education is not only an offer, it's an adventure. It's an adventure where youth and workers have a place, and it's an adventure where you, the students, can have a place. You can be related to, you can see concretely that you have a place to take in that. Now I will leave the floor to Noah just to speak a little bit more about that place she can take in it and how we are working concretely with schools.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bruno. And indeed, it's such a great pleasure to have Noah with us, one of the young ambassadors who try to reduce this gap between the learners, the students, and teachers. So Noah, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you, Juan, for having me. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit, just for you to understand better my engagement. So I'm an 18 years old Brussels woman, and education is very important for me because it taught me about various topics that weren't known or didn't even matter to my family, especially the climate crisis. Last year, I took a gap year where I learned languages and I dedicated my time to the association. Now I'm studying humanities and social sciences. So in the team Vers Demain for tomorrow, we use debates and workshops. This is our main tools. For example, we organize debates with students from different schools, which is very important for us because we notice that depending on the schools, the neighborhoods, or the social and financial situation, students have different levels of awareness about the climate change. One example of question of a debate could be, should we implement birth control to fight against the climate change? Scientists and specialists about the topic because we want to let some knowledge to the students. And we also do workshops. For example, we do workshops for our ambassadors. For example, last year I had the chance to show my peers how to do beeswax. And now we are also helping group of students that want their school to be greener. Some examples of actions that they do is cooking healthy snacks to sell during breaks, or grow some vegetables for their school cafeteria. Why I do this project and I believe in this project is because the future is youth. And I think that adults have to teach us, but learn along with us because we never know too much about this topic. And we have to work together because everybody is affected by this issue. And we have to start this work as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Noah. I really like your comment that adults should also learn along with you. So in fact, we are all in a learning curve in order to adapt to these sustainability challenges that we are facing daily. So thank you very much for your comments. So based on Rudolf's experience in transforming school facility and operation, Bruno and Noah's work on transforming school culture now leaves us with one last element on this, what we call whole institution approach to ESD, the whole community learning together for sustainability. And in that regard, I would like to now invite Akpezi. In your long experience in ESD and leading the transformation in different villages and in communities and schools and universities, how can transformative engagement be supported through, especially through non-formal education and the nexus between non-formal and formal education?
Yes, thank you very much, Juan. And it's really been a very interesting discussion from the other panelists. So I'll just give some examples, from the work that I've been engaged in, non-formal education, maybe linked with formal education a bit to respond to your question. First of all, let me share from my work with the Regional Centers for Expertise, the United Nations University Program for the African region. There, in my work with them, I found that promoting intergenerational conversation, like what we are having now on this panel, is very, very essential, to link the impact in what is happening in non-formal education as well as formal education. So this kind of intergenerational conversation link the young, the old, policymakers, who are a very, very crucial link, with practitioners, so you have a more holistic perception and a more holistic impact. Also, with the regional centers for expertise, we have learned that in our work on education for sustainable development, you apply the multi-stakeholder, interdisciplinary approaches. And these are very, very impactful. This includes engaging with the policy. I keep mentioning the policy processes because if you saw when Curmira was making her contribution, she talked about connecting the dots. So if we take the school and the non-formal sectors and leave out the policy sectors, then we are not connecting the dots. We need to connect all the dots. And this is what we have found in the work that I have done, connecting formal education with local communities. And again, another missing link is the fact that all these need long-term commitment, for it to be visible and having an impact, not just to have a program here or there. Now, another great program that I would like to mention that I have learned a lot from and has made an impact is a project being undertaken by the University of Bristol that involves people from the African continent, Asia continent, Europe, all that. And the idea is to co-create new knowledge that can assist education, that can assist understanding of sustainability issues with policymakers, practitioners, just like what Noah referred to when the students were trying to, as an adventure, understand what these things means, asking themselves the questions, because that way every organization and people involved are able to, personalize, their action. Their perception, the perception of the test network that I'm talking about is that ESD needs to be understood in a way that takes account of the historical, geographical, political, social, and environmental context. Let me mention one more that I think also would help us to connect the dots, and that is the work that the Earth Charter does to promote ESD in, towards sustainable development. They have developed a very effective, user-friendly access. It is called Earth Charter Access for evaluating sustainability of organizations and individuals. This tool helps evaluate and improve both the level of your declared commitment and performance, because a lot of us declare, oh, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to do, but what about the performance? You need to connect the two so that there can be concrete action on the ground. And this kind of evaluation commits the user to a process of continuous self-education, reflection, and rethinking to turn their conscience into actions that will transform the world. I'd like to stop here now. Thank you so much, Juan.
Thank you very much, Akpezi, for this amazing set of examples. And indeed, I resonate with you that it is absolutely important to connect the dots, make the long-term commitments, and make the changes that are accountable and evaluated. So that is indeed very, very important comments that you made. And I would like to bring to you for your attention that we are still in the middle of the pandemic, the corona crisis, with many countries still struggling to stay resilient under this crisis. What do you think needs to be done more and better in the future, building on your comments about these examples, better in the future to promote transformative engagements for sustainability through ESD, in particular in the context of this new global framework ESD for 2030, which I had the pleasure of introducing at the beginning?
Yes, wow. And I know that, the ESD framework is focused on delivering some concrete actions towards the sustainable development goals. And we have only 10 years. And what the COVID situation has enabled us to see is that, yes, we have made great advancement, in science, in technology, in greening tools, but then the COVID situation revealed the dark side, which is very concrete. I mean, like when, I think it was Rudolf, when he was giving the example of their work, and he said that as a reason of the security issues, there has been problems. So it brought, the COVID situation brought out issues of inequality. It showed us the dark side of growth, civilization without ethics, the cost of it, medical science without equity, governance without justice. And these responses are all products of our education systems and priorities. So it means that we need to have this conversation that we're having now towards ESD 2030. An important issue is how ESD should be understood. The meaning and role of ESD needs to be redefined, simplified, and repurposed. One of my colleagues in the Bristol project, Professor Poonam Batra, she puts it like this. She said that ESD must locate itself in the larger frame of coloniality, modernity, socio-political context, economic and development policy and practice. ESD must engage with the difficult issues. We can't run from them. And the difficult players, there are difficult players that have made sustainability a mirage in spite of decades of inspirational efforts in formal and informal education. These include societal and structural changes that promote sustainability, youth proactive engagement, like we have seen now, and the engagement of disadvantaged learners of all categories. In my countries, for instance, the ESD must address local concerns of impunity, good governance, justice, equity. Otherwise, in real terms, the ESD and sustainable development goals will be a mirage. And the report and data that will be submitted, it will be like those of the MDGs, which did not really have bearing on the actual experiences of the people on the ground. So we need to embrace a new compass for ESD. Ask the right questions. For instance, in what ways can you imagine your fieldwork or your government or your schoolwork becoming more just and beneficial to more people? We need to ask these questions. For instance, how can global systems be more just and beneficial to more people? That's another question. Yes, like you will see from the slides, it's a world of different strokes. But I know, and from the example that we have had from Noah and everybody that has shared on this panel, that education well done today will change our world tomorrow. Let me just end with the quotation from Madiba Nelson Mandela. He said, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. Look at these children on my slide. People must learn to hate. So hate is taught. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite." So this is the challenge, for ESD 2030. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akpezi. You've raised very, very important questions. So asking the right questions, asking the difficult questions, and really facing our problems today that was actually amplified through this crisis. For example, injustice and issues that, inequality, access to resources, all those difficult questions we need to face so that we can, whatever we educate at this point, can also be resonated in the future that we are creating together. So thank you very much, Akpezi, and thank you to all 5 panelists for your valuable inputs. I think we have brought together a very exciting set of comments, and I would attempt to summarize in connection with what we have been talking about. Indeed, we learn from the insights and experiences today that to promote transformative engagement for sustainability through education, we need to first of all have the experiential learning, the value of experiential learning in family and school that plays a key role in triggering interest in surrounding issues and gaps, as we saw in the case of Curmira and her experience seeing the coastal coral reefs being deteriorated thanks to her grandfather's support. And then secondly, we talked about creating lived experience in school facility and operation so that whatever we learn in school is also lived and experienced as part of the daily experiences in school. For example, the case of the school in Beirut through Rudolf's comments. And thirdly, we talked about how Noah and Bruno suggested that promoting school culture where citizenship can be practiced is the key in order for everybody to be involved and engaged in creating, co-creating the learning that needs to be created at this moment. And fourthly, I think breaking down of the silos and working with partners, connecting the dots to foster a community of learning, which is actually meaningful with the realities that we face. I think from Akpezi's emphasis, that is a crucial point to also take home. So in a way, in short, I would like to come back to this statement, which was included in the ESD for 2030 framework, which says that ESD in action is basically citizenship in action. And it evokes the lifelong learning perspective taking place not only at school, but also outside the school environment throughout the life of each individual. So in a way, we are trying to create a learning that affects and leads the changes in the future and addresses the difficult questions and leads the societal changes that we want to see in the world. So with that, I think we would like to conclude the first part of the session. Now I would like to open for discussion with the audience and take the question and answer from the audience. I have a couple of questions that was raised. Maybe we start with this one. So the question, I think, to everybody, sometimes ESD tends to be limited to more local activities for conservation and recycling, especially when it is practiced in schools. Akpezi raised the important point that often environmental issues involve political solution and often global actions. So for instance, the root causes of climate change issue faced by Caribbean countries may come from other parts of the world than Caribbean countries. How can ESD deal with political and global issues and often the controversial issues in classrooms with young learners? So how can we address the root causes of the sustainability issues, especially in the school context? So I think that's one question to be raised. Perhaps maybe I would start to invite Bruno and Noah to respond first, and then move on to Rudolf and Curmira and Akpezi, if that's okay with you. So maybe Bruno and Noah, would you like to respond to this first question?
Yes, thank you, Juan, and thank you for that very clear and direct question. Actually, I think that there is two answers to that question. At the first point is that yes, from every moment from now, we have to work and to fight on a global and political scale, because it's there that the main changes can take place. And I think it's a real fight, it's a real issue, and we have to put the pressure to the people, to the political people, in order for them just to take their responsibilities. But I know that in the same time, there is a gap between the politician and the whole society. And because of that gap, it's difficult to put the pressure. And we have to work on education in order for the students, in order for the youth to understand that they can go through that gap. It's possible to engage themselves. It's possible just to have an impact. And it works to do that. And then I think, we have only a few time, but I think it's a big deal to start now. Then in that way, I think we can work on the conscience that we can do something and that we have to do something. And I really like something Akpezi said a few minutes ago, because actually one of the biggest problem we have is that we feel as individual people. We don't feel as a whole. We don't feel as a community. We don't feel that world is a society. It's a whole community. And in a way, it seems so difficult to do that, because we have to manage economics problem, we have to manage cultural problem, we have to manage education in order just to manage environment. But in the other hand, it's also an opportunity, because by doing that, we are solving climate problem, but also a lot of other problems we have. And so in a way, it's so difficult because everything is connected and we have to do all together. But by the other hand, it's also a good thing that we can work on a lot of different issues by doing the same thing. And what's that thing? It's connecting together. It's learn again to meet each other, to speak to each other, and that's the most important thing, to act together on the politician, but also on local projects.
And if I could give an example, I'd give mine, because my parents don't believe in politics. And it's thanks to my school that believed in projects as Demain and the association that I'm now an engaged citizen. And now I believe that everything is possible as I'm talking with you at the UNESCO. So yeah, I'm sure that we can tell to the youth that she's powerful, it's powerful, and it can change the world.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So having that confidence that we can do something and we can do it together, I think that's very, very important point. So now moving on quickly to Rudolf, because we are very short of time, but Rudolf, over to you.
Yes, I think first that these matters should be above politics, most of all. And specifically in our country, we should ignore the political issues because they are too much complicated and there is too much corruption for the time being, at least. So I think we should work with the youth. We should inform them, we should show them, train them, sensitize them. I don't know, we say in French, sensibiliser. We should, because one day some would take responsibilities in the country. So the change could really start at this moment, and hopefully at least. And students are usually more open to social changes, to changes in our customs, maybe bad customs or habits, and than the elders. So I think we should continue our efforts without thinking about all what happens around us.
So we should persevere. That's a very good point. Yes. Moving to Curmira.
Okay, so at the political level, I always believe that a lot of conversation is happening around sustainable development, but it's not enough with the right persons, so especially with young persons and the most vulnerable. So it is important to actively engage and encourage persons to be part of the conversations, raise their issues and how they are affected on the ground with it, because ESD is a multi-sectoral and a multi-partner approach. It's a multi-stakeholder approach as well. It should include all parties, all persons involved in understanding the bigger picture. And a message that we teachers should also be sharing with their students is to really understand who are the gatekeepers in society. How can I as an individual make a difference? Because our actions all have repercussions, our actions all have consequences. So what can I do at the local level and in collaboration with my community, my peers, my friends? How can I amplify my voice and get the action on the ground moving and running?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Curmira. So engaging in the conversation, and adults also should make a conscious effort to engage young people in the conversation. And finally, over to you, Akpezi.
Yeah, maybe I'll just like to just round up with I don't know if you've heard about the bridge on the river Koluteka. This was a fantastic technological bridge that was built over a river, you know, with all the technology, best technology in the world. But then there was an earthquake, and then the course of the river changed. So what did you find? You found a bridge built to nowhere, and the river, the problem's still there. You know, so if we do not connect, I still go back to the words of Curmira. If we do not connect, we must connect the dots. I think it's about citizens in action and governments in action. We've had Citizen in Action. I mean, there are so many great programs that all of us have been involved in. I mean, look at the examples that we have seen on this, given on this panel. It takes just one government to throw a bomb and all that. I mean, like what is happening in my country now? Schools were closed. Some schools were bombed. Students died. Young people died. It destroys everything. Let's connect the dots. And let's not make ESD 10 years' time a river Koliteka.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So in order to not let ESD go down the river, I would like to take just one very quick question, but I would only be able to give you 30 seconds to respond in one very simple sentence. So it's a riddle. One question: in order to not let ESD go down that river, we would need to. There's a question from Ms. Salim that asks, how can we as educators try to encourage transformative change, which will engage students in a long run throughout their life, not only say in one semester project? So how can we make a lasting impact as educators? So with that very tough question to respond in 30 seconds, maybe I would first go to the same order. So we go to Bruno and Noah.
Okay, so I would say very briefly, if you want to work with students, first you have to ask them what's important for them. And you will discover that the place they live in, it's important for them. And by asking them, by just feeling what they are saying about it, that's the best start point to work on.
I'll say the same thing. When you study something, when, for example, you try to explain it to others, you understand it better. And that's the same thing. If we ask the students what they are interested in this fight, and they work on their interest and not on the interest of others, they will appreciate it and be more motivated, and they'll be motivated also out of school. So we will be creating engaged citizens.
Perfect. Rudolf?
Yes, it's in the same, it's a continuation. So we must show the problems, we must let them discuss them, search for solutions, maybe inform, and trying to create debates in order to motivate them. So motivation is very important, yes, indeed.
Perfect. And Curmira, please.
I would just like to add, just find your passion. So whatever you're passionate about, continue and drive your passion. Understand that even though challenges may arise, difficulties may happen, persons may say no to some of the ideas, just don't give up, continue the course, and understand the bigger picture.
Thank you very much. That's very strong. And finally, Akpezi.
Yes, I would just say be the change. Model the leadership, the kind of citizenship you want your students to go into life with. You cannot teach conservation in the classroom and as a teacher model waste. You know, it won't work. So we have to be the leader and model the leadership and citizenship we want the students to become.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Curmira, Rudolf, Bruno, Noah, and Akpezi for your excellent insights. It was just amazing to be able to have that conversation with you today. And thank you to all participants. So indeed, sustainable future does not come on its own. Each and every one of us need to work together to make a meaningful change in our daily lives, whether small or big. So from using less plastic to leading political changes, only when individual transformation leads to structural and societal change can we really overcome this existential crisis that we are facing. So in this effort, I hope that this session has been a meaningful discussion to advance our efforts on global citizenship education and education for sustainable development, which are both at the heart of sustainable development goals. So with this, we come to the end of the session 3 on transformative engagement and education for sustainable development. Thank you to all and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.